Today I'm changing out the water pump on my Toyota because whenever I'm at a stoplight or drive-through, it starts overheating. And my guess is that water is not circulating through the engine, causing it to overheat only when it stops for a long period of time. Luckily, the truck is 40 years old, so everything in the engine is extremely simple to work on and to fix, which means this job should only take a minute. So the first step after disconnecting the battery and removing the intake pipe is to pull out both belts. And personally, it's a good idea to label them to help tell them apart later on. And then once the 4 nuts on the fan are removed, the fan clutch should pop off, as should the pulley. But this is where you really need to start paying attention, because inside the box should be the gasket, the water pump obviously, and 4 new studs. And with the 4 new studs, make sure to dab them each with the red Loctite and thread them on hand tight, because the proper way to tighten them is by using the 2-nut method. And if you never heard of the 2-nut method, it's basically jamming 2 nuts together while then only wrenching the top one, which in turn tightens the stud into the hole. And it's really that simple, as is the next step, which is draining the coolant. My truck, however, must have participated in the November challenge because it busted aggressively like me on December 1st. Anyway, while the coolant drained, I went ahead and sprayed WD-40 on the A-bolt to the water pump, and to make sure that everything went back on the same way it came off, I made a template to hold the hardware in place so I didn't lose anything. And after that was out of the way, I was free to pull out the pump, and comparing it to the new one, it looked identical with the exception of the color, of course, but I'm not the one to judge. What I do know though is that the inside had to be clean, so I covered the 2 holes with towels and wire brushed it as best I could until it looked ready for the gasket. But for a water pump gasket though, it's a good idea to apply sealer on the engine side of the gasket for better protection, and not only on the gasket but also on the pump itself, because it's a part of the engine that endures a lot of stress, so it's better to be on the safe side. And since bolting the A bolts didn't take that long, before putting everything back together, I also swapped out my thermostat for a lower temperature one, since it's starting to get really cold in California. And for the sake of the video, I skipped to the part where it's time for the new coolant, where I first added BG Super Cool to protect the internal from corrosion and 1.5 gallons of pre-diluted green coolant. And as always, I turned the truck on with the heater circulating full blast and topped it off as it was reaching normal temperatures. And after going for a test drive and burping the system once more, the truck felt amazing. It stayed at a consistent cool temperature whether it was stopped or whether it was going down the freeway, and for some reason the engine felt a lot smoother too. So I'll say this job was a job well done.